Hello everyone, a warm good morning and welcome to today's session on a very important topic, that is business development for lawyers. It is presented by the Indian Lawyers Association. ILA is an organization at a global level, especially active in India. And we run different initiatives and events, thereby to bring all the legal professionals together. Our main vision is to create a common voice of all the lawyers of India, and we run different initiatives like giving a mentoring platform to young lawyers, having a few initiatives for students who are studying law, having a legal aid committee which helps those in need. We give platform for networking and educating the lawyers, and we do this especially by having chapters in different cities of the country. We currently have 75 plus chapters across India. Here is a list of all of those chapters. We encourage and urge all of you to join the chapter in your city. And if you do not see a city where you live in, please reach out to us and we would be very happy to start a chapter in your city. I'll hand it over to Mr. Navneet Chugh, who is the managing partner of Chugh LLP and the founder president of ILA. He is going to moderate the session today. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Madhura. Thank you for doing such a great job with the Indian Lawyers Association. We have a wonderful goal. There are 400 cities in India with a population of over 1 lakh. We would like a chapter, an ILA chapter in all 400 cities. We have a lot of patience and we're not going to give up. So no matter how long it takes, we will stay at it. It's a matter of time. We will get there. And when we get there, we'll be the largest legal organization in the world, representing 1.3 million lawyers in the country. The purpose is to provide a platform for learning, mentoring, be mentored, for hiring, for getting a job, for networking, for sharing professional information. And what we've seen with other Indian lawyers associations throughout the world is that a lot of marriages happen amongst our members. So we're hoping some of that will happen for the youngsters. We have a wonderful panel today on a topic that we couldn't even think about discussing 25 years ago or 30, business development for lawyers. We were supposed to go quietly to law school and set up our shop and put our name outside the door and sit inside quietly and hope and pray that God's angels are telling others about you and somehow you're getting work. Fortunately, we've slowly coming out, not as far out as we would like, not aggressively as we would like. In some way, shape, or form, India has got independence, but the 1.3 million lawyers of India are still in prison. But maybe that's too strong to start with. But at least we're having a business development seminar. That would have been unheard of. And when I thought that will these panel speakers come out and talk about it, and will their partners let them talk about it? And I was very happy to see that almost everybody I approached said, sure. So we have a great panel today. Deepak Kapoor from Manupatra, Ganesh Chandru from Dua, Puneet Shah from IC Universal Legal, Sarika Raichur, who contracted COVID this morning but was brave enough to join us. Hats off to you from Kochar, and Siladitya Dasgupta from Ernst & Young. What a wonderful panel. And I'll stop talking and I'll start with our first panelist in alphabetical order. If you're wondering why I'm discriminating against Siladitya, just all your life you've been last, Siladitya, because of your alphabet order. So what can I do? Sometimes we do last names, but okay, today felt like Deepak is the most experienced amongst our crowd, so he deserves the first part. Deepak, over to you. Tell us about your life.
Okay, I am a Pakka Diliwala and went to Columbus, then Shriram, then IMI for my MBA. Post that, by luck, chance, I don't know how, but I was involved with a number of greenfield projects, as they were called at that time. the word startup had not come into the dictionary at that time. In this was late 80s. So I started my career with Sona Steering, moved on to India Glycols, two greenfield mega projects, one in auto, one in petrochemical, where I actually got my grounding to understand how a new company, a new project takes off. Then early 90s, if some of you would be aware, was the beginning of the financial services industry in India. Three friends of us in Delhi joined hands with a large broking house in Bombay, and we started a financial services company, which was unheard of in India at that time. There was a time when Morgan Stanley had just set up shop with SBI for SBI mutual fund, and they had a dedicated fund. So we were doing a lot of placement with mutual funds, placing debt paper, turning around companies, etc. From then on, I joined one of the first and the largest NBFCs at that time, 20th Century Finance, and did a lot of consumer loan, investment banking, private equity. It was, so I learned my trade on the street. I have been around the table. In the corporate, I was looking for money from banks and NBFCs. In NBFC, I was lending money. In financial services, I was broking between the two. So the late 90s, if most of you will remember, McKinsey had come out with a report on the BPO boom in India. They said it's a $54 billion dream. So a friend of mine and I, we saw the report and we said, let's do something. So we started hunting around what to do. We zeroed down on one or two projects, which thankfully we didn't do. Then we started a LPO. My first venture in IT was an LPO called Altivolus. At its peak, we were 400 people doing very good work for US legal publishers. So in between, somewhere in 2001, we hit upon the idea to set up a legal database like on the lines of Lexis and Westlaw. So that's how the story started. And we grew from year to year, decade to decade. So today we are 21 years old. We are not only in online legal research, we have our own litigation discovery platform, document management. We are coming up with a compliance and a contract management tool by March. So in brief, that's what my story is.
Congratulations, Deepak. What a wonderful journey. Thank you for helping all the lawyers in India. We'll come back to you and pick your brain some more. Ganesh, tell us about your life, birth, college, work, experience. Why did you want to become a lawyer?
Hey, first, thank you so much, Navneet. I'm really grateful to you for having invited me to be on this panel today. And the timing is very good because I've moved back to my hometown, Chennai, after almost 22 years in 2020. So it's been a year and a half since I moved back. I was born in Madras, as it was then known, which is now Chennai. I grew up here, did my law from the century-old Madras Law College, one of the oldest law schools in India, like Bombay and Calcutta as well. So when I joined law, it was the centenary year. So it was very nostalgic. I did a 5-year law program after my 12th standard, as we call it, equivalent to the A levels in England. I was called to the bar in India in 1994. So it's been a journey of about 27 years plus pre-qualification, post-qualification. In fact, Navneet, I started off attending courts because I don't know if you know how the government law colleges in India work. We have like 1 hour of class and rest of it is chill time. So after my first year, I realized that if I do this, then I'll end up entering cinema or doing something else. So I became a permanent intern with the senior counsel at the Madras High Court, which was just next door to our law school. So 4 years I was as a student, but I was most of the time in the Madras High Court running around, learning the nitty-gritties of litigation and the procedural aspects. And then I was very active as a mooter in law college days, and I had the privilege of representing India at the Jessup international moot in Washington. And naturally, for me, that was I wanted to be a litigator. And I started off in the Madras High Court, practiced for 4 years post-qualification. Then I wanted to do something international, but dispute resolution is what I knew. So I decided to do a LLM specializing in international arbitration at the National University of Singapore. I was offered a NUS, that's National University of Singapore Research Scholarship. And I wrote a thesis on international commercial arbitration and information technology. And as you would appreciate, Navneet and others here, when you are a young lawyer, you would always want to try things out. So I thought, why not spend some time and gain some exposure outside the country. But I didn't realize I would live in Singapore for more than 16 years. And during which time I qualified as a solicitor of the Supreme Court of England and Wales. And I've also admitted as an advocate and solicitor of Supreme Court of Singapore. During this time in Singapore, I was also associated with the Singapore International Arbitration Center. I headed their case administration department. I was the counsel and deputy registrar of the center. And during which time I pioneered SIAC's initiatives in India. So it gave me an opportunity to come back to India with the Singapore Arbitration Center hat and reconnect with a lot of people here. And that was a fantastic opportunity. And I told myself that I had to come back to India at some point. And in 2015, I moved back to India and I was in Delhi for 5 years and I moved back to Chennai in 2020. I specialize in dispute resolution, predominantly in arbitration and commercial litigation. I do both domestic and international work. I also sit as an arbitrator, but the focus of my practice is counsel work, and I do arbitrations as well, mostly institutional arbitration, whereas I'm appointed as arbitrator from time to time. But it's great to be part of this ILA initiative, Navneet, and thank you so much for the invitation and look forward to chatting more today with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ganesh. Seems to me that you should be the law minister of India. And someday you're going to have to explain to me, why is it that a country of 1.4 billion people, 1.3 million lawyers, the land of Gandhi and the land of non-aligned movement has to run to tiny Singapore to mediate our disputes, but some other day. Puneet, tell us about your life.
Hey, very good morning to all of you. And Navi, thank you very much for inviting me to this panel, this wonderful panel, I would say. So just to talk myself, I think I did my schooling from Jabalpur. I'm from Jabalpur, Madhya Pradesh. Did my graduation there at college. In 2004, I think I moved to Bombay, pursuing my law. Did law from Mumbai University in the Mitibai Law College. And yeah, it was a 3-year course. Started my career with Nishit Desai Associates as a corporate lawyer. I think that has been my forte, and I wanted to pursue law in that direction. Simultaneously, I was also pursuing my CS. I'm also a company secretary, Member Institute of Company Secretary of India. And I completed my CS somewhere in 2007. Simultaneously, I also completed my law in 2007, and then joined Nishit Desai, first corporate law firm. Venturing out on the mostly on the corporate work, security law work, and funds work predominantly, because Nishit is more funds law firm of the country at that point in time. Then I think couple of years, I think I moved to another boutique law firm before shifting to JSA. There again, the focus has been the corporate law, mostly in the private equity, venture capital, and merger and acquisition practice. So close to 17 years of practice experience now. Mostly handling all sort of inbound, outbound acquisition, private equity investments, advisory work on mostly on indirect investment, normally on venture side, doing deals, structuring, corporate deals, and I think that has been mostly the the work on the work side, I believe. yeah, Navneet, and I look forward to speaking to the other panelists and the members here.
Thank you, Puneet. Sarika, tell us about your life. Why did you want to become a lawyer?
Good morning, everyone. And I would like to thank ILA for giving me this opportunity, and Navneet and Madhura for reaching out. It's wonderful to be here and speaking about our life and what we did. I was born in Pune, and the beautiful city of Pune, which every student yearns to be in. And I did my law from ILS Law College, which was the 5-year course. Again, just like Ganesh, that's after the 12th standard. And thereafter, obviously, looking at the opportunities that were available, because I was very clear in my mind from the very beginning that I was inclined more towards business laws rather than litigation. So I was very clear in my head, which actually took me to Mumbai, because that was the nearest city. My parents were not really willing to, explore any other city other than Mumbai. So that's how I landed in Mumbai. And I started with a firm called as Paras Kuhad & Associates, which is no longer called as Paras Kuhad & Associates. Mr. Kuhad became a senior counsel, and therefore it was rebranded as PK much after I sort of left the firm. And then I had the good fortune of working with ADM Capital. It's a Hong Kong-based fund, PE fund, which is focused on distressed asset transactions. So they were one of the first ones to have landed in the country doing only distressed asset transactions. So that gave me a great experience of working in the private equity side while focusing only on distressed assets. So very, very challenging things. And as a general counsel, obviously, not as a general counsel, but I was reporting into the general counsel who was based out of Hong Kong. But the only sole legal counsel in India, I was responsible to looking after all Indian transactions and working alongside Indian firms who were sort of working with us, helping us with the transactions. And some of the transactions were also handled in-house. So that gave me a very good experience of, investment transactions. And thereafter, I had the good fortune again to look at the other side of funds practice. So you have two parts. One is the setup. The other is investments into targets. So I did that first, and then I helped with setup of funds. And then for personal reasons, I had to move to Oxford. I lived in Oxford for a period of 1 year, and then 1 year in London. And that's when I met Noor LLP. It's a top European law firm. And I started to help them with their India desk. So I was there for a couple of years, and then I moved back to Delhi. And that's when I realized that since I had got into business development pretty early in my career, I just realized that probably I should give it a try. Rather than working for larger firms, I should probably try and set up my own firm, which I did. And which then, I delved into, startup practice. So I started working a lot with startups on their entire life cycle, including, setting up to, even early exits. And that's when I merged my practice with Kocher and Company. And ever since, I have been doing a spectrum of transactions from M&As, joint ventures, PEVC, those kind of things.
Thank you so much, Sarika. Mr. Das Gupta, your turn.
Thank you, Navneet. So I actually come from a family of lawyers, but they're into litigation, unlike me. And like Sarika said, that I also knew that I don't want to get into litigation at that point in time. And initially I did some internships with a couple of startups in Kolkata, and then I realized, and I got introduced to corporate governance, risk management, risk transformation, the entire stream of corporate governance and risk mitigation. From there, I actually started doing some research that who are the leaders in this market space in India. Then I got introduced to Big Fours, and I got to know that these are the guys who are currently leading these kind of practices in India. And then I made it a mission of my life that I want to get into a Big Four. And that's how I landed with EY. And I moved from Kolkata to Mumbai since last 8 years now. And I have done my graduation from University of Calcutta, where and my entire life has been in Calcutta. And for the first time, for this particular role, I left the city and moved to Mumbai. And since then, I have been in this city. And in terms of this particular session, I'm really looking forward to sharing my experience and my views on this particular topic, along with what others has to offer.
Thank you, Siladitya. Thank you so much. Okay, so I have a bad habit I want to share with the panelists. I tell the panelists that these are the questions I'm going to ask you, and then I forget about the questions and I lose the piece of paper, and then we have a conversation. And so let's see what I told you and what I asked you. So this should be fun. So Deepak ji, what is wrong in the business development world as far as lawyers are concerned? Are you happy with how the lawyers are doing business development in India? What are the things that lawyers are absolutely messing up on? What is it that lawyers do in terms of biz dev that irritates you? And what do you think that why can't these guys get this right? Can you share with us?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Navneet. There's no business development among lawyers in India. Let's be very honest. Very few large law firms have now started hiring specialist BD people who go out and meet. But if you look at the mid-tier firms, or even we go on the ranking from 6 and down, you don't have business development. They still depend on the old age practice of having a client and doing more work for the same client. I don't even think there's too much of referral also happening in this line. But actually, referral is the best business development that can happen to anyone, not only lawyers. So lawyers need to, in the current, especially pandemic, where freshly brewed coffee and freshly brewed cookie meetings are not happening, and things will not come back. They have to adopt to technology to do their business development work. They have to seriously invest in technology. Earlier, when we used to visit law offices, we could see offices like Navneet with a book rack at the back. I think these are passé. These won't come back. If you look at Ganesh, I think he's in his office, there's no book rack at the back. You have to depend on technology today for everything. Pardon my saying that, Navneet, but that's my personal view. I have seen lawyers earlier when we used to sell Manupatra to big law firms, that these expensive English and American law books, which had not even been opened even once by anyone. So for the lawyers to get into business, if you are a mid-size law firm, invest money in the business development person. It is very important. And you have to understand business development is not an overnight thing. It's a long-term process. The returns will come after 2, 3 years, 4 years. So you have to keep on investing money in the person. It is not a sale which happens overnight. And to do business development for lawyers, there are a lot of avenues today. And personally, I feel young lawyers should start writing articles and posting on the net, because that is their best way to build a brand. The young lawyers need to build a brand, mid-sized law firms need to build a brand. And that can only happen if you write articles, author articles, join industry associations, not lawyers. Because if you join lawyers association, you won't meet clients. You will only meet lawyers. So
What was your secret? What was your secret in marketing and to lawyers that you were able to get hundreds of lawyers as clients?
Okay, when we started, what the lawyers face today, there was no avenue for us to how to go about it. So we had to build from scratch. The existing channel was through booksellers, but that was very expensive. They were asking 40-50% commissions, what they used to get on books, which was unheard of on electronic trade. So we invested money in feet on street. So we started with a Bombay office and Bangalore, Chennai, etc. And we invested money in resources, manpower resources. gave them laptops, gave them internet dongles, go and sell. So that was the way the lawyers were used to. Bookseller comes to our office, dumps a book, you read it, return it after a week. So we're going to a lawyer or a corporate, giving them demos 1, 2, 3, any number of times. That's how we went about it. It was feet on street. But today, things are changing. Because of the pandemic, we are doing more sales online, on Zoom and other meetings.
Wonderful. We'll come back to you and talk to you about use of technology in business development. Let me go to Ganesh next. So Ganesh, as you know, lawyers are not allowed to advertise in India. I guess it's an old British law that India is following. England, however, banned that law that lawyers cannot advertise and allowed lawyers to advertise starting 1986, probably because of what happened in the United States 9 years before that. In 1977, a lawyer, Bates, sued the State Bar of Arizona because US also had a law that lawyers shouldn't be able to advertise in yellow pages and newspapers. Mr. Bates purposefully advertised so that he could get into trouble with State Bar, purposefully, and he said so. The State Bar revoked his license, asked him to stop. He wouldn't stop. They revoked his license. And then the State Supreme Court ruled against Mr. Bates in favor of State Bar of Arizona, that lawyers should be allowed to advertise. And then Mr. Bates was waiting for this. And the State Supreme Court did say to Mr. Bates that, okay, fine, we know you're doing this on purpose. We won't take your bar license away. We'll let you practice, but don't advertise. So of course, Mr. Bates went to Supreme Court, and finally he heard what he wanted to hear, that lawyers shouldn't be exempt from the First Amendment of free speech or the Indian Constitution of free speech, and we should not be treated like third-class citizens, and we should have the same rights as everyone else. As a matter of fact, we should be protecting the constitutional rights of the 1.4 billion people, and the last people whose rights should be taken away is lawyers. And then, of course, the US Supreme Court ruled that the 50 state bars of United States law is wrong and illegal and unconstitutional. And starting the next day, lawyers could advertise. Now, if you look at the 19,506 cities in United States, every city has its yellow pages. Well, thanks to internet, those yellow pages are dying. But at the height of it, every city had a yellow page, 19,500 yellow pages. And the single largest advertiser in every single yellow page throughout the country was lawyers. More pages were lawyers advertising than anyone else. Front page was half of the time lawyers. Back page was 80% of the time lawyers. Get the amount of revenue that the publishing industry generated, and the amount it added to the GDP of United States. And the Supreme Court in 1977 ruled that your logic, State Bar of Arizona, that this is not good for society is utterly wrong. As a matter of fact, the more lawyers advertise, the more the public will learn their rights. And so what do you think? Do you think it's time India stepped up into the modern world?
Yeah, thank you, Navneet. I think, as you rightly said, we are carrying a lot of colonial baggage, which while countries like England and America have amended their laws on advertising by lawyers, we have our strict rules here, perhaps because of reasons of the way the Indian bar is structured. Because we have people practicing, predominantly the lawyers in India are litigators. Well, of course, you have a lot of corporate law, and the last 20 years, 30 years after India opened up the legal market, the corporate practice has boomed, and this is a different ballgame altogether. And if you look at the litigators in India, you have people practicing in Supreme Court and the High Courts, but you have several lawyers who are practicing in the subordinate courts. So there is a great disparity, or if I may use the word, difference in the way litigators themselves practice, be it subordinate or the Supreme Court. And perhaps the reason why, in fact, I think one of the earlier judgments of the Madras High Court, I think in Sekira, Secretary Bar Council, as way back as 1967, said that these rules to prohibit advertising is perhaps because of the disparity, because people who are wealthy can taunt and put up their advertisements, whereas a lawyer who doesn't have enough means may not be able to afford advertisements in the first place. So this perhaps is the history. But coming to the current situation in India and the world at large, I mean, personally, for me, Navneet, the first time I ever saw this was my first trip to the US. In 1994, I saw newspapers where lawyers would have 1-800 numbers where you could call them for motor accident claims or family law matters. I was like shocked, and I asked somebody, I mean, lawyers are advertising like this in the newspapers. It's demeaning. Aren't we a noble profession? They said, hey, dude, this is a different ballgame altogether. People, and as you now said, in yellow pages, most of them, earlier or lawyers who advertise. And the next experience was when I was in Singapore. I was with Baker and McKenzie, international law firm, and they had a talk to associates. They conducted on business development. And they said they have a budget for BD business. I was surprised. This was like 20 years ago. And I was like, you have a budget for BD in India? It's beyond, we are a respected profession. We are a noble profession. We cannot go and ask anybody, give me work. Your clients are supposed to spread the word about you and do it and all that. Then but in a few years, I understood, whether we like it or not, we are definitely a noble profession. But we should not forget that there is a business angle to law as well, because people need to sustain their practices. And if you look at the way junior lawyers in India were paid hitherto, I mean, it was almost like the bar in England, where for the first 5 years, it was completely muft. You come, if you want, you come. I'll give you something for your petrol expenses, kind of a situation. But now, I mean, at least in law firms, students out of law schools, even students without, a family background in the law, are all making very good money today. At least the youngsters I'm talking about, because of the way law firms are paying. And that is because of the kind of fees that you charge. And that's because of the clientele. But how do you now, let us say a startup or a young firm, like Deepak was mentioning about his experience of how he had to go and sell his kind of thing. But in India, I think it is going to change for sure, Navneet. That's my view, because in 2008, they amended Rule 36 of the BCI rules and permitted websites for law firms with a lot of restrictions, of course. But what I would think is, we cannot open it up like the US, because because of the technology right now today, even anybody and everybody has a smartphone in India today. That's a digital revolution. We are talking about digital India. We are talking about everybody right to information. I think it's more not the lawyers, it's from the client's perspective. Put yourself in the shoes of a client. He needs to know who are the people out there that he could go to. Typically, what happens when a person has litigation, he goes and asks somebody, hey, have you appointed a particular lawyer? Is he good? And then you have a set of lawyers who are quite senior, who are always busy getting appointments. But there are so many people out there. How does the client know? I think it is a right of a client to know who are out there. And that, in fact, is more a pressing need than the lawyer's right to advertise. So the market needs to know who's out there, right? In this kind of, when we want everything to go digital, I'm sure somebody else is going to be speaking about the websites and other things. Therefore, I think we need to look back and relax this a bit without compromising the dignity of the profession. Of course, we can't have people advertising on TV between, soap opera or something, and then come say, hey, hi, please, if you have a litigation, come to my office. I mean, we can't go to that extreme. Even there are countries which have rules for lawyers when they give interviews to televisions. In India, everything is happening. Today, you see, all of us have LinkedIn accounts. We are on Facebook. We are very careful. And the websites, we say, please click accept. This is not soliciting or advertising. But but we do have basic information. But in my view, this should be improved. Definitely, the question, we should have advertising, but it should not compromise on the dignity of the profession, because definitely I believe that law is definitely a noble profession. It's a calling, and I think that should not be compromised, for which I think we can have fantastic rules made. If we have that as a separate publicity rules and you have a committee looking at that, I think that'll be fantastic if that happens. So at least things are regulated. That's
Yes.
those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you so much, Ganesh. Wonderful thoughts. I was speaking to a lawyer a couple of years ago in India, and he says, you want my views? My view is that every lawyer should be forced to advertise a one-column ad in a newspaper once a month in their city and put their bar number, because people talk about it being a noble profession, but it's one of the most dishonorable professions in India, because 600,000 of the 1.3 million lawyers have a fake law degree. So if you force them to advertise and force them to put in their bar number, then it'll become a noble profession. So Puneet, speaking of websites.
Navneet, can I just add to what Ganesh said? I'll take a minute. The last 4-5 years, there were a number of websites which had come up in the country, which had lawyers listed, and you could go to a lawyer and the lawyers were rated. 2 years back, Allahabad High Court came out with an order banning these websites. They said this is advertisement. Lawyers cannot even post their names on a third-party website which uses them for services. So we have a long way to go before lawyers, because that's the mentality of the judiciary and the PCI today.
Right. Yes. Right. Somehow the Constitution doesn't apply to lawyers. But Puneet, so you think website should be one of the leading tools for business development for lawyers? And I'm sure you've seen 1,000 websites. What's your take on what should be included in a good website and what should not be? And what are lawyers doing wrong with their websites?
Sure, Navneet. I in a way agree with what Ganesh just mentioned, that I think what is the first point of contact here? When you meet somebody, obviously the potential client would like to know you. Who are the people behind it? Whom you are dealing with. So it's more than the lawyer. I think it's the client's ask. What I mean. I think to address their curiosity. Who are the people you are dealing with? What sort of practice areas they are in. And to know more about a particular firm or a particular institution, I think website is a wonderful way to market yourself. See, at the end of the day, what an institutional a law firm or a lawyer is looking at, building long-term client relationship, doing networking. I in a way agree with Deepak also, that the client referral is a best way of marketing. But today, the way the competition is growing, the way things are changing on ground, due to the upcoming law firms, due to a lot of offshoots from some of the other law firms setting their own shops. I think the website becomes a very important tool to market yourself. And yes, as Ganesh also rightly mentioned, in terms of with certain checks and balances, with certain caveats, I think once a committee sets up and looks to what can be advertised, what cannot be advertised, and there are advertising standards for separate advertising standards for a lawyer, maybe prescribed by Bar Council of India. I think we should be able to project ourselves in a better way, with all those balances in place, and without, again, without compromising the dignity of this profession. I think that is what I feel should be a priority right now. The way the market is growing, the way the legal services are demanded today at nooks and corners of the country. I think one important thing I would like to highlight is that again, what should not be there on a website is probably I think, again, from a moral standpoint, from a legal standpoint, let's not give clientele names, let's not give their logos, that we have serviced these clients. Probably I think that's the one fundamental check we should do as lawyer on what we are publishing on our website. What we should not do is, again, giving false information about the practice area. I think that is something, see, I believe, there are very, few larger law firms which may be doing everything. But I think today, if you look at, law firms are also becoming specialized. You have certain niche practice, which you want to cater to and grow to. I think, we should focus on, what you are good at. So let's not, if I'm not practicing in marine law, if I'm not practicing in family dispute or matrimonial dispute, I would rather, not put this on my website. I think that is how I will look at it. If I don't do criminal, I don't do criminal. I don't have specialization in that. So I think let's not do that. I think that is also, we should avoid putting on the website. The other thing is, let's not compare ourselves with, the other lawyers. Probably, I think that, our services are better than, I think let's not make those kinds of statements. I think that is what I would say, the website, should take care. Again, I think, some of these standards are already in place that, by accessing website, you are not actually developing any, client attorney relationship. I think those disclaimers, I think we should certainly put in place on the website, whenever we are designing that, or whenever we are building it up. What should it contain? Certainly, it should contain, the exact information about your practice area. What are, your sectoral expertise, probably. What are the areas where you are good at? I think those should be highlighted. Some of the other things which can form part of website is that, if there are any, events which you have participated, if you have given any, if you have attended any thought leadership seminars, or you have participated as a speaker there, probably that can be highlighted. I think that those should focus of a website of a, I believe. I think that's what I think, Navneet.
Thank you, Puneet. One day we should calculate the amount of hours that are spent in India by 1 million people reading the disclaimers every day and clicking, and convert it into the rupee rate of the loss of GDP to India. Probably $1 million a day, reading disclaimers, which nobody reads, nobody understands. But I guess somebody somewhere is happy about the disclaimers. I don't know who. So Sarika, you worked in a German law firm, or in Germany, you worked in London. How do lawyers market and do biz dev in Germany and England that's different from what we lawyers do in India?
I think, yes, I have seen business development practices both in India and say in Europe. And what I noticed was business development in Europe was a lot more informal as compared to how it is done in India. As we've been hearing from the co-panelists, business development is new in India, and it is rather formal in terms of, fixing up a meeting and going with presentations. And there are still people who are, printing out things and handing over those brochures. But that's not how I have seen in the little time that I spent in Europe. What I saw was there were a lot of informal meets, right? And there was a lot of, mingling between associates as well. So it is not just limited to the partners. There is a lot of mingling between firms as well who share interests. So for example, let's say a firm which practices UK laws and a firm that only practices, say, German laws, Russian laws, laws from Central and Eastern European countries, they would probably get together. They would have, informal meets. Friday meetings are very, very special in the UK. And, people would get together and chit-chat
the
with
pen
each
drive
other.
I'm leaving.
I think Shantanu, yeah. So what I've seen is that there's a lot of informal sort of, becoming friends rather than making it very, very formal and, saying that this is the purpose of meeting or whatever. So that is something that we can probably bring here. And I see that even between partners of the same firm, business development is not limited just to, say, other firms or let's say the clientele. New clients, existing clients. We also tend not to pay attention to our existing clientele. what tends to happen is we are always after acquiring new clientele, right? So these are different aspects that one should, structure in their business development programs, and also inculcate the same amongst their associates. Becoming friends is a lot. I mean, when you work with friends, it's a lot easier rather than just working with strangers. So that is something that we should probably inculcate in our culture.
Thank you so much, Sarika.
Sorry, Navneet, just to add what Sarika mentioned is that I mean, just one point I wanted to highlight quickly is that she mentioned that things are becoming more informal. I think it's perfectly. I agree with that, because when you are dealing with startups today, I think they are mostly technocrats, right? I mean, I think the focus is on the their business and their understanding of a problem. I think as a lawyer, I think somewhere when you're dealing with startups like this. And the idea is to focus on their business and advise them on a more proactive commercial solution. I think somewhere if it is informal, like a WeWork culture, I would say, the way co-working space are increasing in India, I think more and more informal meeting is taking place. I think that's what I think should be the focus from a BD point of view.
That's great, Puneet. So, Siladitya, it said that building a brand is one of the most important things in marketing your firm. You work for a company that has a great brand. I never really understood the yellow torch light, but okay, one day we'll understand. Can you tell us a few things your firm did to create such a great brand, and a few things you all do now to enhance and maintain your brand?
Right, absolutely. So in terms of building the brand that we did, and the company has a huge history of 150 years. Now, what we did initially in terms of building the brand that we have today, there are three main identifiers, I would say. One is about identification of the market differentiators. Then the second one is becoming a thought leader on upcoming and relevant topics such as data privacy, something on GDPR, ESG for that matter. And the third one is building an area specific expertise. So I'll come to the building an area specific expertise part specifically now, as some of my co-panelists were mentioning that you cannot be an expert in everything, right? So you have to identify a particular area or maybe an industry or a particular cluster in which you want to become an industry specific expert or a subject matter expert, as they call it, SMEs. Now, what UI did in over the last couple of decades, that we established ourselves as a subject matter expert in corporate governance, risk mitigation, risk transformation, policies, governance policies for global organizations that are having presence in multiple jurisdictions and over say 30, 40 countries, such as our ITS companies like Infosys, Wipro, so on and so forth. Now we have built that brand successfully by establishing ourselves as a market leader in a specific area of practice, instead of establishing ourselves as an expert in everything that we do. So that is the first and foremost thing that EY did, and I think that should be the case for every other firm or company that is trying to establish their branding globally. Now, as per a specific research on this particular aspect by Hinge Research Institute, which got published, I think, back in 2019, it said that if you have a specific area specific expertise, then the chances of getting a referral from your clients becomes twice of the percentage than it would have been usually. Okay, so it signifies how important it is to build that subject matter expertise and identify that area, that this is the area that where I am trying to establish my leadership, and this is where I command my authority. Now, what we do to maintain the brand that we have built so far in last 100 or so years, right? Now, there are mainly three things. One is reinventing ourselves. Second is introducing technology in the solutions that we are providing. And thirdly, creating a branding which is, a larger audience can connect to. Say, for example, EY's tagline is building a better working world. Right now, this simple yet meaningful branding highlights our purpose and also drives all of our initiatives. at that point of time. And also the philosophy of learn, unlearn, and relearn. That is also very important for us. Now, what we do is we introduce new technology in automating, the existing processes, which will simplify a general counsel's day-to-day work, or the in-house legal team's day-to-day journey. Be it in case of automating their litigation process, tracking of their cases, be it their compliance governance, be it their policy tagging with respect to the existing processes. I mean, a lot of companies just create SOPs, but there is no implementation of those SOPs. So the moment you introduce technology, you automate these kind of processes, and automatically the company becomes a better, it improves the corporate governance perspective for that company, which eventually creates a better working world, and which is related to our tagline. So that is what we do, and that is what we do to maintain our brand, and that is what we did to create this brand that we have today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Deepak, you're a technology expert. How can lawyers use technology to do biz dev for their firm?
Okay, there are a couple of things which they can do. What technology has taught us, the barriers of being in a large city are not there. So even if you are in a tier 2 city, you can do a corporate advisory work or a due diligence. So invest in technology, go in for the latest tools. So let's say if you are doing a due diligence, today due diligence happens online through a VDR, which is a virtual data room. You need not physically be present, what used to happen 10, 15 years back on a large table where all documents used to be there. So everything is uploaded on the VDR. So whether you are in a T2, T1, it's the same thing. Secondly, invest in a good CRM system where you note down, record all the people whom you have met, what you have discussed, etc. You never know when that person comes back to you. The old age of keeping everything in a diary, it's over. Third, get into a good document management system, which has an ability for the client to access also. Because this will show that you are a very transparent organization. Everything is recorded, etc. On business development front through the social media, I have my view. I think it's a necessary evil. But beyond LinkedIn, keep on posting articles. It's very important that you post articles so that people know what is your field of specialization. Today, if you meet someone who says he wants to get a contract written and you have never done that, please say no. Don't say I will do it, because you have never done it. Because if you do a wrong thing, that person is not going to come back. But he will appreciate if you say, sorry, sir, I cannot do this, but I can refer you to someone who can do this. That's my take, Navneet.
Thank you so much. So Ganesh, you've been at it a decent amount of time. In your experience, what things have given you the best result from a business development point of view?
Yeah. See, traditional things, Navneet, which is not something different from what people have already done, which we can do in common law countries. I mean, with in India, obviously, it's more, speaking in conferences, because whenever, of course, the last 1.5 years has seen a tsunami of webinars. So we are every other day, there are like three or four webinars going around. And, but prior to that, physical conferences where you could go and speak on topics, which is twofold. One is sharing of knowledge, obviously, and letting the prospective clients know that you're good at a particular area of law. The other is networking opportunities. See, how much ever you have, you speak on the phone or you have technology, we cannot run away from the fact that when you meet somebody in person and you get to know them, that's where the kind of relationship develops between, with prospective clients and with your peers as well, because, you need to also have a good name with your peers. So I think attending conferences and speaking in them has helped me a lot, in the last in the last 2 decades that I've been doing that. And as Deepak said, writing articles, I would have been happy if somebody had told me that when I had started my career as a lawyer, because what we knew was just go to court and try and argue a case before the judge, and which is very important for a litigator. I'm not saying that's not important, but then I think writing articles is very good for 2 reasons. One is, when you write something, sit down and write something, that's when you yourself do the research properly on a particular area of law, and you come up with something, and then times that, my God, so many of these aspects I didn't even know. I didn't know that this was the latest judgment by, let us say, the Delhi High Court on a particular matter, which I should have known because I'm doing this day in and day out. So, and I think, but today, I mean, I have written some articles, but not like so many that I would have wanted. So there are a lot of young lawyers attending the program today. And I think today it's very easy because you have so many of these platforms where you can publish. One recommendation that I have is, unless you write for a journal which is research oriented, the article should be kept short. If you write like a 10 or 15 page, I don't think people have time to read, because you already have to look at your LinkedIn, your Facebook in the morning. You need to, if you still read the newspaper, you need to do all that. But by the time you get to work and you start real work, already an hour and a half is taken off by all these things. And when you click and open an article, if it's typically a 1-page or a 2-page article, if it's on some legal development, I think that's the best thing lawyers need to start doing. And I see so many young lawyers doing that. For example, on sites like Bar and Bench, I see a lot of young lawyers writing a latest Supreme Court judgment or a latest development in law, an amendment to a particular statute. I think once you start doing that, several lakhs of people who are reading this today, than the traditional journals that you would get a part and you would open the SEC Supreme Court cases journal part and look at it. I don't think people really are doing that these days. Everything was on the laptop or on your handheld. So I think that is an amazing thing to write articles, and which I have written, but not to as much, and writing chapters in books. This, of course, sometimes there's a commercial angle to it. If you're the firm and they have a budget for these kind of things where you need to buy so many books from them, then you can write a chapter. That's good to do it sometimes as well. I think
let me ask you a crazy question.
Sure.
I just Googled the top employer in Chennai, and it says TCS has 40,000 employees.
Okay.
It's the #1 employer, and it's a nice brand name. Would you pick up the phone and call the general counsel of TCS and say, I'm Ganesh Chandru from Dua, and I want to do your legal work? Would you do that?
I wouldn't do a cold call to anybody, because I think still in India, if you as a lawyer go and call anybody and say, hey, I'm this guy and I would like to do work for you, I think that will be a negative. I think the way I would do it is, let's say ABC company, I don't want to mention any particular company here. Let's say ABCD and Co. And I know that they have so much of work. The way to do it is, there's a general counsel who I do not know. Then I would somehow try and get somebody, or through, let us say, a chambers where they are a member, and somehow try to get a connect and get the first contact through somebody else to set up a meeting. I think that would be the best way, because if in India, I think the people's mentality still is, somebody calls me and says, oh, wow, I'm a fantastic doctor, why don't you come to me? The first thing is, oh my God, he's calling me. I think there's something, dal mein kuch kala hai. No, that's the kind
So
of.
let's say I'm the best lawyer in Chennai.
Yeah.
By some crazy magic.
Yeah.
And you're general counsel of TCS. Okay. And I call you.
Right.
Would you appreciate that?
Oh, if you're a top lawyer and if you call me, I mean, generally they wouldn't. But if you, I mean, definitely, I mean, I'd be happy, because at the end of the day, general counsels are lawyers themselves and they know the market very well. So, general counsel would be happy. Yes, definitely, if a senior counsel or a top lawyer calls him or her. But it's, if I do not know, in that context is what I'm saying. I mean, if I'm not that known a lawyer, let's say I'm not the top 5% lawyer in a particular city, and I'm not known that I know that that guy may not know me, then I wouldn't do a cold call. If I know that he perhaps knows me, then obviously, because these days, most of the general counsel, there are these kind of associations. We don't have a corporate counsel association per se, pan-national, but there are certain associations that are there in India, where now I think a lot of lawyers and in-house counsel interact. And that's like the next point I want to bring, Navneet. In fact, one other thing which has resulted in good work, as you rightly said, instead of course, rather than a cold call, you have meetings with in-house counsel teams. For example, if it is a big company, you go and do a presentation to them on a latest topic or on some latest legal developments. They really appreciate it because they are very busy vetting contracts and they do not have time to look at. So if you can have a one-on-one meeting with in-house counsel, that in fact I've done that, and it's been quite productive. And one of the areas, having association with with the peers in the profession. For example, if you take my area of the arbitration, you have something called the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. You have Singapore Institute of Arbitrators. I've been involved in training programs conducted by them. So you are moving with your peers who want to get into the field, and sometimes they are your best, they advertise for you in a way, because they say, hey, I've heard this gentleman lecturing to me. I mean, this is a matter which I think Deepak rightly pointed out, maybe this is not my area of expertise. So why don't you refer it to Mr. Chugh, who is probably a specialist in this area, who I heard spoke excellently in that training program. So I think that's another way. And I think, of course, there are international bar associations, local bar associations. Networking is important, not just with the clients. That's very important, of course, because they are ultimately our customers, if you can put it in that kind of terminology. But also with peers in different cities. I think that way, Indian Lawyers Association that you've created, Navneet, is fantastic. Because once you have this chapters in various cities, I mean, I may not, for example, now with virtual hearings, you can go and appear anywhere. But let's say there's some urgent, especially petition to be filed in Supreme Court tomorrow it will be very tough for me to fly in a short notice. I mean, I would obviously look at some lawyer in Delhi to do that for me. And then, of course, when it's filed, I can always fly. And but therefore, I think having networks in different cities and in different countries is very, very important. I think that is very crucial. I mean, when let's say you have a matter in some country where you do not know, I mean, and if you know some lawyer whom you have met, for example, there was a matter in Bangladesh that we had to recommend. I mean, I just met somebody in an international conference in Sydney, and it was just perfect timing, and I was able to recommend that lawyer. That's because we had a drink, we were familiar with each other, we spent an evening where there are 10 different lawyers from various countries. I think those all are very, very important tools. And you've asked me to list 5, but I think I've listed more than that. And I guess there's no straight way to do it. I'm sure there are lawyers who do it in a different way. Like, they tend to have, many people think only if you sit and have a party with a client, you can get the prospect to work. I don't think it works that way. I mean, I think
Ganesh, what we've tried to do at ILA is that inside of every chapter, we want to have a corporate counsel association, a committee. So if you look at the ILA website,
yes,
we have a corporate committee, counsel association committee inside of each ILA.
All right.
Congratulations on becoming the president of ILA Chennai. I'll introduce you to my friend, Aarti Sivanand. She's at JSA, and in 2007, she started the Corporate Counsel Association in India. And the first chapter was in Chennai, and she held many meetings.
Oh, wow.
And of course, she got married and had kids and forgot about corporate counsel. But
I do know Aarti, but I didn't know about the Corporate Counsel Association of Chennai.
So get her on your board and have her revive that.
Sure.
So Puneet, whose job is it rainmaking? Partners only, or should associates be expected to rainmake, or should a firm just hire a professional?
Sure, Navneet. So I think, in our profession, I think partner is I believe it's the first line of, marketing and, salesperson, because the kind of work you do, it speaks for itself. But I think, I think those days are gone that, we can restrict really the partner to do business development, at least in a firm, IC legal, where, I come from. I think we have made this as a policy that, at an associate level also, the expectation is that, yes, what work you do, what the relationship you build up, I think those will really help you to grow if you start doing marketing in your initial days. So I think two things are very important. I think at an associate level, at a senior associate level, also the expectation is that, as Ganesh also mentioned, one is writing articles, writing short piece on a particular aspect or a particular new areas of legal development. That not brand will help you to brand yourself as a legal profession, but also the institution which you belong to. So I think for a fresher or a junior associate, I think that's very important in working with any law firm. I think that the marketing starts the day you join the profession. I think that is how I would say it needs to be developed. And Navneet, I think you also directly refer that the fish style of working, finance, IT, sales, and marketing. I believe this is the right time to do that. I think some of the business development efforts, I think let's leave it to the the market professionals. They are expert in that. In terms of building the client relationship, more involvement in sales pitch, more involvement in creating right side of collaterals for the firm, the knowledge management initiatives. I think I would say they also play a very important role, and it's a need of ours, and they need. I believe that nobody is taking seriously. As Deepak also mentioned in the starting of that discussion, that today no law firm actually sales and marketing in a very comprehensive and an organized manner. You leave some of the tier 1 law firms, but yes, this needs to be attended really wholeheartedly, I believe.
So Sarika, you were in-house once, so you were the right person to ask. I was battling with Ganesh about calling a general counsel. So what do you think in your experience is the best way to approach general counsels and get work from them?
See, I truly believe that it's only about the market share. Each one has their own market share at a given point in time, and that can always change. It is not like if somebody has been working with a particular firm, it would always remain the case. And there may be situations where there could be more work that's coming up, there could be conflicts, and therefore knowing more firms or more lawyers and knowing expertise was very, very important. So I don't think there should be any hesitation in reaching out to counsels as many number of times as required. I think what they look for really are these 4 things. One is domain knowledge. I mean, I think one of our co-panelists also discussed that. Puneet mentioned that if you don't do something, don't try and sell that as your expertise. That is one thing. So domain knowledge is very, very important. Second is expertise that is linked to the domain knowledge. If you've done that sort of similar work, that gives general counsels a lot of confidence. Having said this, also the other thing is that, also the ability to treat their problems or the problem that has been presented in front of you as your own problem. What would you do when you are in that situation is something that you should be able to think. So if you're not able to look into it with a personal angle, you may not be able to deliver the best, advice, or it may be very theoretical. That is one more thing that we try and implement at Kocher and Company. The last thing is also being able to give pragmatic solutions. So it should not be the case that, you hang on to a problem and then say that nothing doing. I mean, both parties are really interested in getting the deal done, and therefore becoming a hurdle is not what GCs are looking at. They're looking at pragmatic solutions from it. So these are the 4 things that I would say that can impress general counsels.
Thank you, Sarika. So Siladitya, speaking of social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, What, in your experience, is the best platform for lawyers to do business development?
LinkedIn, definitely LinkedIn is the best platform as I perceive it. Unless you're into, creation of visual content, then YouTube and Instagram could be a better way of monetizing the content that you're creating. However, when I say LinkedIn, it has to be about, sharing industry insights, focusing on the potential problems your client could face. See, as for me, marketing or branding is not only about you as an individual, it's about the solution or the product that you're offering to the market. I mean, that's how I perceive it. And in order to achieve this, you need to follow that 80-20% ratio, which I personally do. And by that, I mean that in case you are posting or creating content on LinkedIn 5 times in a week, out of those 5 posts, 4 has to be, on your content or the solution that you're offering. And 1 post can be about you, what you have achieved or how you can inspire your peer group or maybe the upcoming lawyers. But it has to be that 80-20 ratio where 4 out of 5 topics should be relating to the content or the industry insights or the solution that you're offering to.
Okay, great. Thank you, all of you. We have our formal panel sessions over. We have some Q&A. I know we're going a little over, so I'll make the Q&As very quick and short and just ask 1 question each. So Deepak, how are you different than Lexis and Westlaw, Manuputra?
We are entirely India focused with a flavor of international content. Unlike the other two, they are more internationally oriented with flavor of India. We have been able to reach, because of our feet on street, to the smallest town and sell our product.
Wonderful. Puneet, Divya Dhalwani has a question for you. She's a young CS person, and she's working in a law firm, highly inclined towards securities law. She's wondering what other options should she consider exploring. She also possesses a law degree.
Sure. So I think I would say that the CS and law is a very good combination in terms of understanding of your corporate law and the secretarial practice. I think you should nurture that. If you want, maybe if you want to also pursue a specialization, maybe I think National Law Schools offers a 2 years law course on the specialization in business law. I think I would recommend that to do that. And then, if the idea is to, pursue a corporate law as a practice, I think it's a wonderful, deadly combination, I would say.
Okay. Thank you. So Ganesh, Ninad Deshpande has a question for you. How does a lawyer distinguish himself in litigation, especially that he's young and he's had very few opportunities to demonstrate his skills?
Yes, I think one thing, Ninad, is you very rightly pointed out, it's not easy to get opportunities to argue, full final hearing, for example, when you're a young lawyer, unless you're practicing on your own. So I think best is when you are attached to, let's say, I'm looking at a typical litigator, not with the law firm, and let's say with a senior, and you're going to court. The initial opportunities you might get is to argue small miscellaneous applications, or first thing is to ask for adjournments or a passover. That's what you tend to do as a junior. But where I think you should impress upon your senior is that a best practice as a litigator is you have so many files, let's say, in your office. For every matter that you are handling, you should have a list of dates and notes, which is just about a page. And many a times, many judges, when they see young lawyers asking for an adjournment, saying my senior is not in town or he's legs before another court, let us have it another day. So many of the judges say, why don't you tell me the facts of the case? They give you that opportunity. You should look for that opportunity. When you get that opportunity, if you're not prepared, then you should at least be able to say the facts thoroughly, and you should have the sheet of paper in your case bundle, and you start telling the facts. And many a times the judge would just want to give you that opportunity. Every high court, the judge does that, including, I mean, even the Supreme Court. So that's when you get the opportunity to argue. The other thing is, please also remember, you must, get the confidence of your senior that yes, you would be able to do this case. He would be able to argue this matter. So one good way of doing it is picking up practice in courts, like for example, Consumer Forum, which may be in a different location, or other tribunals where if your senior or the partner you're working for is doing in some other court, then you could go and argue in another forum. So these are the ways, looking for opportunities. So therefore, the first thing is preparation. You need to be good with the brief that you've been given. That's extremely important. Without knowing the facts and without knowing what the brief is about, you cannot just, when I mean you, I mean, say many young lawyers want to go and argue, but they need to be prepared. They need to know the case so well. And during the briefings, during the conferences, if you impress your senior that you know the facts so well, I'm sure maybe the senior would give you an opportunity. And there are cases, for example, where I can give you my example. When I started off in the Madras High Court, there are, in India, we have something called prerogative writ petitions. You have mandamus and certiorari's. And initially, when it is filed, they get an interim order, and then the final hearing it comes up before the court many years later. And by the time the final hearing comes up, you're not able to find the client because he's moved on, or you didn't have internet in the early 90s or mobile phone. So you would write a letter or try his landline, and he would have moved to a different city. But the case is pending, and then the senior would, I mean, I've argued so many of the matters where, then we've got the order. In one case, I won, actually. We couldn't find, but then we somehow managed to locate and give him the copy of the order and, collect some fees for that. So I think these are opportunities, subordinate courts, other forums, and when the High Court asks you to tell the facts, you should be able to. Once you develop those skills and other lawyers see you arguing, your clients are also sitting behind in courts, so you would probably get your own briefs. I mean, you need to, even when you're working for a senior or for a law firm. I think Puneet was mentioning about associates and senior associates doing business development. I think you should also try and develop work from day one. If you get a big brief, come and engage your senior, you try and work on that. That's how you develop a practice. I think that's why this topic itself, business development for lawyers, should start from the time you're a young lawyer. You should tell your peers, you should tell your friends that I'm doing this, I'm in this chamber, or I'm in this law firm. If there's any work, you should come and consider us. So that would be good, because if you bring in the work, you'll be valued more by your firm as well as the senior as well. In addition, of course, to the assistance you give to the existing matters.
Thank you, Ganesh. So Siladitya, this is a question to you from Shubhronil Sen. What qualities do Big Four look for in a fresher, and do you consider internships under advocates?
Okay. Yes, internship experiences, relevant internship experiences will definitely give you an edge. I mean, when I say relevant internship experiences, I mean, you cannot, have a couple of internship experiences under a criminal litigator and then come and apply for a corporate governance job. That does not really make sense. But in case you have relevant internship experiences, it can be anywhere. It need not be a big brand. It can be a startup or a small firm where you did some relevant work to the profile that you're applying to. If you have that experience, and if you have that specified on your CV or on your profile, then I think definitely it's going to give you that edge. And I myself personally, had that edge. And that is how I got the whole opportunity to work with EY, since I had that relevant internship experience.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Last question to you, Sarika, from Nigel Matthew. Do lawyers have an edge if they land in the first page of Google? So how they land is by way of SEO or paid Google ad. One may be a good lawyer in a particular subject, but still losing out a lot of clients because of this simple reason. What's your take on this?
So I would say that you don't need any paid Google advertisements or SEOs to land on the first page of Google. It is more about your work, and I would probably reiterate what Deepak has been saying, and Ganesh also followed on that issue, is writing. there are a lot of people, a lot of clients out there who use the internet first as a tool to find out who can advise me on this particular issue. And that's how they end up finding out about you. And if they already see that you have the domain expertise and you have some knowledge about what is being done in that area, there's a possibility that they would reach out to you, at least for advice. They may choose amongst various people, but you don't really need to spend big amount of money in order to be on the first page, I would say so.
Okay, wonderful. I know we have more questions, but our time is up. And thank you so much, Sarika. Thank you, Puneet. Thank you, Saraditya. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Ganesh. I know you were a little under the weather, Sarika, but thank you for joining us and not giving up. I really appreciate it. You guys were awesome. Stay away from the virus and stay healthy and safe. And keep up the good work for the Indian legal profession, all of you are doing, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for
everyone.
having
Thank you,
us.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Navneet.
Navneet, and
Thank
thanks
you.
to Madhura as well for coordinating this.
Yeah. Yes.
Such a pleasure to have been on the platform with all of you together. It's a privilege.
Thank
Great
you,
way
Ganesh.
to start the weekend.
You're president of
everyone.
ILA Chennai now. Let's do a Chennai event in a couple of weeks.
We should. Yes,
Okay.
we'll do that. I'll talk to you on that.
Let's do an event on how Chennai lawyers are better than Bangalore lawyers.
We already have the Kaveri Dispute Tribunal between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. So
Do you think you can get 4 lawyers who will get on internet and speak openly that they're better than Bangalore lawyers? That's all
I'm
we
sure
need.
they would, but it would be a little Kurukshetra war. So I think we
Okay. So Bangalore has a new president, Sonal.
Right.
She's the general counsel of Mindtree.
Okay.
She would be up to it if we want to do a who has better lawyers, Bangalore or Chennai, and let's get 2 lawyers each, you and Sonal and one other, and I'll moderate.
Sure, let's discuss or maybe tweak the topic a bit, because I don't know how, I mean, though it's on a lighter vein, I'm not sure how people would take that,
Well, given that it's our panel, we wouldn't worry about how they take it.
Right.
We would. All we need is one other lawyer who can say that